Coffee, big cup, and hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Gilmore Way Podcast. I'm Laura.
And I'm Kate. Normally on this channel, we are a spoilers all podcast, going over the show with a fine-tooth comb to connect moments and themes across the series and to look at real-world topics that interest us through the lens of Gilmore Girls. But this week, we're offering a crash course with all the basics you need to know about our favorite show, a Gilmore Girls 101 intro-level class for anyone who wants the skinny on what to expect if you watch, how to approach the show if you're not getting hooked immediately, or a refresher if you tried watching it in the past and stopped, and you need a reminder of some of the most important things.
Yeah. But before we truly dive into all of that this week, this is your friendly reminder to please do all of those YouTube things for us. If you could hit that like button below and subscribe to our channel, we would always really appreciate it. It's one of those small little things that you can do that really helps us out. And so we're just always so grateful for that support. As another just random but general disclaimer that we do need to throw out there, there is a cat that resides within my personal residence. So if you hear kitty noises, sometimes he just has things that he wants to say about Gilmore, and we're always welcome to outside opinions. So just go with it.
He's very insightful.
Yeah, indeed. We also previously did a companion video to this that is a little bit shorter than this one is going to be if you want even less detail, or if you're looking for something to try and send to a friend or family member to convince them to watch the show. There is a potential for minor spoilers here, but we will try and push them to later on this episode and give you a fair warning for earmuffs or the eject button if you really just need to tune out and you don't want to hear any of those things. We're not going to be going into too much detail or spoiling dramatic and big shocking moments from the show, but we are going to give some high-level plot points that we can, dole out to you season by season. So if you truly want to go in fully blind to the show, which we understand, maybe sit out this episode. But if you do just want a bit of a primer to know roughly what's coming so you can see if it tickles your interest or matches your vibe, then that's what we're doing this episode for. Or even if you just want to stick around for the discussion of the first few seasons, just to start getting a feel of what you can expect before you actually dive into the show yourself and don't want to ruin it. Again, this is the episode for you, and we're just going to go from there.
Exactly. So what we'll do is we'll just do a quick summary of the season, bit of an overall review, and then give some of our picks for the most crucial episodes to watch for kind of the big storylines, and picks within a few categories that if you want another place you want to start, we'll have recommendations for it. Things like the most representative of the season, best overall, coziest vibes, best character interaction, best Stars Hollow moments, most heartwarming. There really is something for everyone. So we'll give some high-level recommendations so that, for example, if you are having trouble getting stuck in and you want to watch maybe just the high points of the season so you get a sense of what's going on, but you only want to watch maybe like a third to a half of it, and you want to jump forward a little bit to skip some of the quote-unquote filler episodes, we're going to kind of give you that roadmap. So let us start off with season 1. So we have the show starting with Rory getting into Chilton and Emily and Richard coming back into Lorelai and Rory's lives. We're introduced to the quirky, charming town of Stars Hollow in episodes like Cinnamon's Wake, Love and War and Snow, and Star-Crossed Lovers and Other Strangers. We have Rory building a stronger relationship with and reliance on her grandparents after something like 16 years of alienation, while Lorelai chafes at the constant contact with the parents that she left when she was 16 to move from Hartford to the cozy, charming town of Stars Hollow.
Mm-hmm.
So we see Rory settling in at her new school, which brings additional academic and social challenges. She is, the brightest in her class at Stars Hollow High, but she goes to this new prep school and she doesn't exactly get along with all of her classmates right away. And her increased focus on school strains her relationship with her best friend Lane, who's having growing pains of her own. Rory's starting to date. There's a new guy in town, and we get to see a little bit of a love blossom between this shy, studious girl and this guy from Chicago. And we get to see how Lorelai responds to the shift in Rory's interests. Lorelai gets into something of a taboo relationship that causes problems for both herself and Rory. Emily has to contend with what her daughter ran away from them to when she was just 16, when she visits Stars Hollow for the first time in a long time, and Rory shows her around. Rory's dad comes to visit Stars Hollow for the first time, and it complicates Rory's life further. So that's sort of like your high-level idea of what's going on in season 1. Personally, I will say season 1's not my favorite. It's actually mid to low on my ranking. I think it's second to last, right after season 7, which is the season where the original showrunners didn't return. So they left the show in the hands of previous producers and writers, and it was trying to imitate the earlier seasons of Gilmore, but doesn't quite hit that same high watermark. But I still think it's a really good season of TV overall, and there are many episodes and moments that are beloved by us and the fandom. How do you feel about season 1? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it definitely was turtle pacing itself starting out. And I'm just going to contrast it with something that was so vastly different for me in that regards. We won't focus on it too much because we're talking about Gilmore. But I remember the first time I ever sat down to watch the TV version of A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, the pilot episode. And spoiler for that, because I know how the internet can be with these things, right off the bat, you have White Walkers coming in and just murdering people. And even if I hadn't read the book, that would have been something where I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to immediately know more. That was just a shocking in your face grab. You will not get that with Gilmore season 1. It's going to start off with just your ordinary routine life things. Rory going to school, having problems with, friends, maybe struggling over a test, but not anything that's just these huge revelations. It's just these two women as mother and daughter living their normal, ordinary lives, but just having your normal, ordinary adulting and teenage problems. So there's not going to be anything that's just going to continue to shock you and then keep shocking you. It's really going to be a slow burn of a start. And I think that's why it can be such a struggle for people to get through season 1, because they're just like, nothing is happening. There's nothing intriguing here that really just makes me want to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And on top of that, you're getting introduced to so many characters because there is such a chonky B cast, so to say, in terms of supporting townies, partners, other people within the show that Lorelai and Rory both go to school with and work with, that it can feel really overwhelming when you're just trying to sort through who everybody is also.
Yeah, it's all kind of coming at you pretty fast in season 1. But like you said, the plot is kind of plotting. Amy's whole thing is to make big things small and small things big. So it's really going to be a lot of daily struggles. It's going to be a lot of world building, establishment of relationships, and that can make some things feel like filler. But it does create this atmosphere that the show is really known for. And it is light and fluffy and charming and true to life. And so I think it's still great TV. But, this isn't Breaking Bad, where Walter decides to start cooking meth in episode 1, and then it's all downhill from there. This is very much sort of like a slow build of investment in these characters. I think that's really where the heart of the show is. It's those relationships. It's the tensions between mothers and daughters and friends and lovers and all of those things that we can all relate to. So that's why I'm sort of like, maybe it's preferable to skip ahead some of these episodes, come back to them later after you've watched the whole show or more of the show, and you just want to come back to Stars Hollow and get more of it. Because I know that when I hit the end of it, I'm always like, let's go, let's restart back to the pilot. I'm already jazzed to go back to the very beginning and here, there she goes all over again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what do you think are some key episodes that you can start with or that people can start with if you find yourself having a slow start and want to fast forward to some of the best up? Like, what would you say are like the key episodes that you must watch from the season to understand what's happening, but also maybe the ones that have a good balance of character moments and introductions, great interactions, getting a feel for Stars Hollow? Like, what would you say to start with, and how would you progress through the season if you didn't want to watch the whole thing, but you wanted to get someone gripped in?
Yeah, I would immediately just fast forward to forgiveness and stuff, because you get the family drama. I know. Hang with
That's
me on
bold.
this one. Yes, I know it's gonna skip over a few things, but I think it really spectacularly highlights why from the beginning of season 1, you see Lorelai having such a difficult and tainted relationship with her parents because of the lack of wanting to be financially tied to them. But at the moment that something within the family goes wrong, so to say, and I don't really, again, want to spoil too much here, but when one of Lorelai's parents starts having some health issues and things are going wrong there, Lorelai and Rory immediately come together, and Emily and Richard immediately come back together to start being there for one another. And I think it's also really important to see how Luke, as just someone who seemingly is, just the owner of the diner in Stars Hollow and maybe a friend to Lorelai, is perhaps a little bit more than that as well. And so for me, that would hook me in because I would want to be like, ooh, what's really going on with those two? Are they more than just friends? Emily's kind of picking up on it in this episode. She drops that as well and, tells them they're both idiots. But I think it really highlights, again, why this family loves each other and hates each other all at once. And you can see that within this episode, as well as bringing in some other interpersonal relationships that are just starting to unfold.
Mm-hmm. And it's a Christmas episode, so it's very cozy and warm. But it is, a little more of an emotional gut punch, which works for me. But I would say, like, you have to start, I think, with the pilot and with the Lorelai's first day at Chilton. Like, it really does set up the main characters. It introduces you to the primary conflicts. And I just think it's a great pilot. On the whole thing is very well done in terms of introducing you to what you need to know right away, very efficiently. One of the examples that is regularly given is that Lorelai is very resistant to going to her parents for money in the first place. So we get a sense of like, ooh, there's something here that is not sitting right with her. And then when she does go to the door and Emily answers and she's like, oh, is it Easter already? It just immediately tells you that this is a family that only sees each other on holidays. It's very economical in its use of just like one line of dialogue tells you so much about this family's history and how they interact with each other. So I think you got to watch the pilot. First Day at Chilton gives you, the background of sort of Rory's day-to-day life and kind of how she comes to know some of these characters and why things are so tense for her at school. So I think those are two big ones. Rory's dance is another. So that's episode 9. It's a big moment for Rory and for Dean, the guy that she's starting to see in these early episodes. There are some incredible moments between Lorelai and Emily. There's this tenderness to their relationship, but then it gets blown up. I don't want to say more than that, but like there's a big fight at the end and it leads right into forgiveness and stuff. So I think that's a great pair of episodes to watch with each other. Another one I think you have to watch is Christopher Returns, which is where we finally meet Rory's dad. So we really finally get a chance to understand how he factors into everything. And he is a recurring character. So you kind of really need to know the foundations here and how he interacts with Lorelai. Plus we get to meet his parents, who are real pieces of work. There's some great family dynamics at play in that one. A lot of juicy family drama, very important context for the Lorelai Christopher relationship. I think technically that's a great episode. The writing is good. It's funny. It's heartfelt, but it's also heart-wrenching. And it really digs into the complicated past of these families. It's well structured, interesting, well acted, covers so much ground. Are there any others from season 1 that you think? I've got a few more, but I want to let you interrupt me if there's anything else.
I'll interrupt you. I have one more. I really tried to you're not wrong when you can pinpoint so many from any given season that are our go-tos. I really tried to be more concise and narrow with my episodes in terms of what I was picking to say, like, if you're really only need to hit on maybe like 1, 2, or 3, here's what you should go with. So I would say after that, just check out the third Lorelai. First off, because it has Marion Ross, and I will worship at the feet of that woman all day, every day. But she's putting Marion Ross as Richard's mother is putting Emily Gilmore in her place in the same way that Emily Gilmore puts other people in their place. And it's just so, like, it gives me internal giddiness just to watch, like, Emily Gilmore squirm. And we're never going to get that any other time than when Richard's mother is coming into town. But you also see that she's uncomfortable because that financial exertion and that claw and that hold that she puts over Lorelai is now being put onto her as well. And she's offering, obviously, her granddaughter a trust fund, a way to maybe get out of Friday night dinners. And it just makes Emily so uncomfortable. So just seeing those family dynamics start to break apart. And it was almost just, I would say, like the Real Housewives, or not the Housewives, but like, you know what I'm getting at? Like Connecticut family drama at its best when this woman comes into town. And I think it really showcases who Emily Gilmore is and the exertion and the control that she tries to have on others and how she breaks down when she can't puppet other people.
Actually, no, I think Real Housewives of Hartford is actually very fitting for that. Yeah, I picked 7. I was like, okay, it's a third of the season. There's 21 episodes in total. And so you could watch 7 and get a very good sense of everything that happens in 7. So the next couple that I had on my list were Star-Crossed Lovers and Other Strangers, which is episode 16. So there's big relationship moments for both gals. A new character comes to town, or returns to town, technically. There's excellent banter. There's a big town festival as the backdrop, which is the first time we really get a big town event, which become a staple for the show. So I think that one's quite important. The next one would be Emily in Wonderland, which is important background information for the Gilmore Girls before the show starts, because we have Rory taking Emily around Stars Hollow and showing her some important places from her childhood. And there's some great bonding that happens between the two of them. And another one of my favorite interactions that we truly don't get enough of between Emily Gilmore and Lane's mom, Mrs. Kim, at the antique store. It's just so hilarious. It's so funny. And last but not least, Love Daisies and Troubadours, which is the finale of the season. Obvious lot of big iconic moments happening in the finale. And so that would sort of round out the season for, okay, I've gone beginning to end with all of these high points. So that feels like if you wanted to truncate a season, those would be the episodes I would pick. 1, 2, 9, 15, 16, 19, and 21.
Very nicely done. I will still stand by my 2. I'm going to probably be a little more narrow-minded here, but that's where you're just going to fill this out. So this is why we work well together, I suppose.
Fair enough. I also made a list of other ones that you could watch. Like if you are enjoying season 1 and you want to keep enjoying it a little bit longer, you can watch Rory's Birthday Parties, which is not one of my personal faves, but I know it is beloved in the fandom, and it is a little bit more of that family dynamic where Lorelai and Emily are butting heads. Love and War and Snow for me is a fun one. Very much a town episode. There's some important relationship foundation for Lorelai. Rory is trapped in Hartford during a snowstorm with her grandparents, and here's some stories from the past that are important. So that's a fun one. Very cozy. And last but not least, Double Date, which has some fun Suki story. Suki is played by Melissa McCarthy, if you don't know, and hilarious. So if you love Suki in some of these early episodes, episode 12, Double Date, is very much kind of Suki centric. So it'll give you a giggle.
Fair enough. Any episodes from season 1 that you would say just don't ever bother?
Yeah, miss me with episode 13. It's fine. It's quirky. It's got some good stuff, especially in the Paris and Rory friendship. And a little nugget about Luke's romantic past that piques Lorelai's interest and provides some interesting context. But other than that, it doesn't really progress the plot. So only watch it if you're a big fan of the Bangles, because they actually make an appearance in that episode.
Fair enough.
Any for you?
Yeah, just skip that damn Donna Reed. We talked about it in a previous episode. I think it was just Amy perhaps trying to drive home a little bit too much of a point about getting away from feminism, which is not a bad thing. And, having a woman be more representative in the household, but it felt like you were just kind of beating us over the head with it a little bit too much. And there really just wasn't any plot progression within Gigi aside from just trying to force that down our throats. So I would just skip it.
That's fair. Okay, what would you say is the most representative episode of season 1?
I'd probably say Rory's dance, because I really think it starts bringing all of the people that are important in her life for her together under one umbrella in one moment. We see that her parents are there for her. Her grandparents are there for her. Dean is there for her. Her father is there for her. And everyone is kind of just showcasing their love for Rory in that moment, as well as seeing her come into her own in a way that I think she hadn't expected, because she's starting to live the life that she probably would have had if she had just grown up with Emily and Richard as parents as opposed to grandparents. So I think it really just embodies all of the important characters that we're getting to really know and that we need to know within season 1.
Yeah, it's got a balance of family drama and Chilton drama and relationship drama. And it's got some important history and backdrop and some great character moments, great performances from Lauren Graham and Kelly Bishop in the final scene. So that was the one I had too. What about the coziest episode?
I mean, I feel like a lot of our answers are probably going to be the same once we start really whittling it down here. So I think my answer is probably the same here as yours. And I'm going to say Love and War and Snow. As much as I have some issues with how Max, as Lorelai's love interest, rolls up into town in that scene, it felt a little bit more orchestrated for me than just a random one-off. Lorelai loves winter, loves snow. I think it's really just nice and heartwarming to see her and Max slowly start to come together and really embrace their relationship progressing, and seeing them start to just really have that love and affection for one another, as opposed to just, a casual first date or two.
Yeah, I love that, everybody's kind of stuck in place because of a snowstorm and the whole town is blanketed by snow. We meet the town Revolutionary War reenactors for the first time, which is something that is a repeating gag throughout the show. So yeah, I think that's definitely a good one.
Indeed. For you, what about best character interaction?
I gotta say, I think Christopher returns because, again, we have the introduction truly of Christopher. He's mentioned a few times before this, but it's the first time we actually meet him. We meet his parents, which provides so much context for their whole history and, what it might have been like for Lorelai when she was 16 and why she chose to leave Hartford. And it's got so many good moments. We've got, a great Lorelai and Richard scene near the end, a great Emily and Rory scene, good stuff between Lorelai and Christopher. So I think that one, or maybe Emily in Wonderland, because it's Emily in Stars Hollow. Having her come to town and spend a day with Rory is very sweet. And like I said, I love seeing her with Mrs. Kim.
Yeah. I'll follow it up with another question to you. Best Stars Hollow moments within season 1 for anyone starting to dive in.
Ooh, Stars Hollow moments. Got to be Love and War and Snow for all the reasons previously enumerated. Or I think Love and War and Snow is also the first time we have a town meeting, which is another recurring town thing that is very fun. And then the other one that comes to mind is Love Daisies and Troubadours, the finale, because there is a troubadour that plays live acoustic music in town. And, it's played as part of the score to the show, but the characters can hear it as well. And so there's another troubadour that comes to town and tries to like take over his turf. So it's this sort of like side character that you never really get anything about. And suddenly he's got a storyline and the town is just very funny about it. So I really like that one for town stuff.
Yeah. Excellent points.
What about the most heartwarming?
It's one I've already talked about, but forgiveness and stuff, because again, minor spoilers, Richard has a medical emergency. We don't know if he's going to be able to come through this or, if we're going to lose him. It's something that our characters are contending with here. But we see them really embracing that mortality and that fact when they're all at the hospital together and not knowing what's going to happen to Richard, and Richard not knowing if he's going to make it himself. And we see even Emily just telling him, like, you're not allowed to go. Like, if anyone's going to go first, it's going to be me.
Now you're spoiling it.
Okay. Yeah.
More general.
But yeah, I think it was just really beautiful to see the love and affection that these people have for one another, when otherwise, seemingly at Friday night dinners, they might just be wanting to claw each other's eyes out. But they're coming together in just a difficult moment at that point in time.
Yeah. That one's on my list. And the other one that I listed for this was Double Date, where Lorelai gets suckered into tagging along on Suki's date. And it becomes a double date with an awkward cousin. And Lane wants to go on a double date with Rory and Dean as well, with one of Dean's friends. So I think there's a lot of just sort of cute things happening in that one for everyone.
Yeah.
What do you think is the funniest episode of season 1?
Again, I think our answers are going to be similar here, but I've got to say Cinnamon's Wake, just because the entire town of Stars Hollow is coming together to attend a cat funeral, which is something that you and I would both do any single day of the week for sure. I'd be there 100%. But that's not a norm, I think, to see an entire community just come together to bid farewell to just a random town pet. So that in and of itself just can be and does sound a little bit humorous, and especially Emily's reaction to it when she finds out what Lorelai is doing as opposed to attending a funeral for a real life human being.
Yeah. 2 words, raccoon wedding. And I'm just going to leave that hanging. And it also has one of Emily's funniest lines. Hold on, I'm looking up aneurysm in the dictionary to see if I just had one.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yep.
Okay. What about best overall?
I might actually have to go back and say Love and War and Snow. Just because I think it was filmed very beautifully as well. And I think sometimes we don't give enough credit to the people that are working on this show behind the scenes, in terms of even just like lighting and costuming, and I think how they filmed Max and Lorelai's entire interaction, just, embracing the snow and the wintertime in Stars Hollow, was just really gorgeous to have to watch, from a scenic perspective as well as from an interpersonal relationship perspective.
Fair enough. I think Rory's Dance is up there. On IMDb, it is rated the highest of the season with an 8.7. It's not my personal favorite, but I think it is technically a very good episode. I also personally love Star-Crossed Lovers. It's one of those episodes I think is really well balanced, and it's kind of got a little bit of everything. So those are 2 that I would say where it's like up there for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's gonna close us out, I think, for season 1.
Yes. So if you don't want spoilers beyond season 1, get out now while you still can. But okay, have you gone? All right, Laura, give us a season 2 synopsis.
Yep. So in season 2, we have Lorelai starting to deal with the fallout of her relationship status at the end of season 1, and she starts having to make some huge decisions about her life. She graduates business school and is also contemplating making a big career move, while also starting to seriously think about opening her own inn with Suki, which is a dream she references in the pilot episode, so that's not really a huge spoiler. She's also struggling to watch Christopher get into a new relationship and contending with the fact that he's becoming the guy that she thought she wanted and needed with someone else, and she fears losing Rory to stepmommy Sherry. Yeah. She also has the potential for a serious relationship in her clutches before it's swiftly torn away from her at the last moment. In other news, Rory is also starting to plan for her post-secondary education and realizing that she needs to up her involvement in her social aspects of school. So she starts doing additional volunteer work, trying to make some new friends. She joins the school paper and is convinced by Paris to run for student council at the end of the season. In her own personal life, aside from school, her relationship status gets complicated by the injection of a new character, Luke's nephew Jess, played by the incredibly gorgeous and talented Milo Ventimiglia, who throws a real wrench into things. Jess's uncle Luke continues to struggle with having to adjust to a troubled teen around and trying to keep him on track just so that Jess can manage to graduate high school. And we'll just say that as a Team Jess stan over here all day, every day, if you like the trope of the boy is only nice to me, then you will love Jess and Rory. On the Richard and Emily front, Richard is struggling at work and faces a life transition of his own, which also has a big impact on Emily and their relationship. So we see a lot of things start coming together, and I think this is where the show itself starts truly ramping up because we've established all of our characters' foundations now. And now that we know who they are and who they're with, partners and otherwise, and what their goals and ambitions are, we can actually start seeing them taking those desires and those ambitions for themselves and putting them into motion. So we know now, like, the why, and now we're starting to see, like, the how of those things coming together.
Exactly. So some key episodes to start with in my books. I think you start with episode 5, Nick and Nora, Sid and Nancy. This is the introduction of Jess. And I feel like the first 4 episodes are really sort of wrapping up storylines from the last season. So Rory doesn't even go back to school until this episode, whereas most seasons start with her going back in episode 2 or 3 after one summer episode dealing with the fallout from last season. So this is the one where, like, for me, season 2 really starts cooking, and it's just so good. Excellent Luke rant at the end. Someone gets pushed into a lake. Epic. Next up, I think you do number 6, presenting Lorelai Gilmore. Rory agrees to attend a debutante ball to cheer Emily up. So we have some Richard and Emily drama going on. Christopher comes back to town. There's some Lorelai Christopher drama. So that's a great one. I think that's really informative of the season. Episode 10 is Bracebridge Dinner. There's an event that the inn is supposed to host that gets canceled, and the town basically has a big fancy dinner party and a sleepover. So that's fun. It's one of the most beloved episodes of the whole series. So I think you got to hit that one.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 13, A Tisket, a Tasket, which is the town's annual Bit Basket Festival, and it stirs up drama for Rory in her relationship, as well as for Lane. And Miss Patty tries to set up Lorelai. So that one is juicy. And then last but not least, the finale, number 22, I Can't Get Started. Everyone comes together for a wedding, and no one's relationship is the same by the end. So those are my sort of like must watch of the series. I have several others where I'm like, these are great, but I think those are the ones that you need to understand the entirety of the season.
Yep. I would have actually started off one episode before you with Road Trip to Harvard, because we talk about how Rory's post-high school education is pretty much paramount for her in terms of what she's gunning for. And the road trip to Harvard stems off of Lorelai just having a knee-jerk reaction to a relationship falling apart. But I think it's just really eye-opening to start seeing Rory looking to embrace what those next 4 years of her life are going to be like once she graduates Chilton, and what her life is going to look like and what she wants to get out of that. So I think that's really important to start off there and kick things going with there.
That's also a good point, because it also wraps up part of Lorelai's storyline from the last season. So I think you're right. That is a good place to start.
Yeah. And then I would just
fave. So.
Yeah, of course. And then not that any of the other ones that you said are not important, because there are no unimportant episodes within the show, but then I would just fast track it to Bracebridge Dinner, because I want to juxtapose that with, again, bringing in some more townies, really seeing why Stars Hollow is so important to Lorelai. I mean, we can tell you that, like, yeah, she loves Stars Hollow, but you really start to get to see the why does she love the town. And the Bracebridge Dinner is an event that she is hosting at her inn because the group that was supposed to be attending this event fell through, couldn't make it. And instead of just completely canceling this event, she brings in the townies and the people that she loves most that are closest to her within Stars Hollow to give them this really spectacular moment as well. And I think it's a testament to why she appreciates and loves the town as much as she does. And we really see that reciprocated as well.
Right. There's some others that I really love. I know Christopher is a very divisive character in the series, but I do like when he comes to town, because I think he really shakes things up. And I'm personally a big fan of episode 14. It should have been Lorelai, when Christopher brings his new girlfriend to town, and Lorelai and Emily both lose their minds. I think that one's just another great drama episode. I love number 16. There's the rub. Emily tricks Lorelai into going away for the weekend with her to a spa. And Rory is left home alone and tries setting boundaries for time alone from her boyfriend, but she's interrupted by Paris, Jess, and Dean all in turn. Another beloved episode in the fandom. Number 19, Teach Me Tonight, possibly one of the most explosive episodes of the entire series. Luke asks Rory to tutor Jess to get his grades up, but Jess derails Rory's attempts to get him to study, and they both end up in some trouble. So, love that one. Another big fight at the end of that one. And then Lorelai's graduation day. Lorelai finishes business school. She's been putting herself through college the last few years, and Rory invites Emily and Richard to the graduation ceremony on her behalf. But then Rory does something out of character, and things go sideways. So those are some other ones where I'm like, you won't be disappointed, I don't think, by watching those. They're not maybe as central, but they're always a good time.
Yep, agree there. Any just yeet it from season 2, don't need it?
I think this is the most yeets I have for any season. I think you can totally skip episode 9. There's a heavy focus on a character that I hate, and the story doesn't really go anywhere. It's not really crucial for anything. I think you can skip number 11. It's another one where it's just sort of like replaying the same kind of drama between Lorelai and Emily, and once again, it goes nowhere. And last but not least, number 12, Richard and Stars Hollow, when Richard comes to town for the day and drives Lorelai crazy by getting all up in her grill and offering unsolicited opinions where they're not wanted. And once again, nothing happens. And it reminds me of an episode that you mentioned you wanted to eat from season 1, which is that damn Donna Reed, because they're sitting there in the opening scene of that episode watching the Donna Reed show, and Rory's like, my favorite episode is when their son Jeff comes home from school and nothing happens. And then Lorelai says, oh, that's a good one. One of my favorites is when Mary, the daughter, gets a part-time job and nothing happens. Another classic. So it very much feels like those ones kind of hit that dynamic where it's like the stakes are non-existent.
Yeah. I really only had like one major yeet from this, and it's pretty much the first one you said, Runaway Little Boy. Just toxic male egos just running rampant, and I can do without it. So just thank you. Next.
Yeah, skip that one for your first watch if you're looking to blaze through.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say is the most representative of the season?
It's tough. I almost want to hightail it to the end and say Lorelai's graduation day. Because again, you start to see Rory realizing that maybe the first boyfriend isn't going to be endgame. We don't know yet, to be determined. But we also see Lorelai, not really a spoiler because it's in the episode title, graduating from her time at a local community college. And I love that Emily and Richard are there for her when they didn't really have to be, that you might not expect them to be, just supporting their daughter and really just seeing how proud they are of her and for this accomplishment. And I think for as much as there's a case to be made of like, do Emily and Richard really love their daughter? Have they ever really loved her? It's proven to me, at least in that moment, that they do. So I love seeing that. And I love seeing Rory, as we end off season 2 going into season 3, really starting to reckon with like, who is the right person for me? Maybe the first boyfriend isn't always going to be, like I said, the end game, and just what do I really want out of a partner? So I think it's a really good encapsulation of everything that we got and do get from our characters, even if it comes at the tail end.
Right. I put Nick and Nora, Sid and Nancy, because it's got a little bit of everything. It's got Lorelai and Luke drama. Jess comes to town. There's a new character. It's so interesting, and it does show a lot of the tensions of the season. Maybe like I like what you said about Lorelai's Lorelai's graduation day rather, because it does have the Emily and Richard stuff. So I think between those two episodes, there's a lot of what makes season 2 so great. Coziest vibes. I think this one's like not even a debate or a question. It's got to be Bracebridge dinner.
Oh yeah.
Like, again, it's winter, it's snowing, it's almost Christmas. There are sleigh rides through the town. Everyone's all holed up in an inn having soup, and there are costumes. It's a good time.
Yeah. I mean, and you had me at like, sleigh rides, horse-drawn carriages through the snow. Twist my arm.
Mm-hmm. What about the best character interaction?
It might be Teach Me Tonight. Just because it's like fizzling. Mm-hmm. It's really starting to make my blood boil, but in like a good and energized way, when you start to see all of these dynamics of this relationship coming together and just really starting to see like, oof, like the chemistry and the spontaneity and will they, won't they? And I think how they're starting to really notice that about one another. I don't want to, again, get into it too much. It's just really invigorating and a really interactive moment for anyone to witness.
Yeah, that one, I think if you're fans of Jess and Luke, that one is your go-to for sure. It is electric. It is so good. But if you're more of a fan of the Emily and Lorelai relationship, there's the rub, I think, has some of their best moments, like some of the most iconic for the two of them through the whole series. And on top of it, you get Paris and Jess together at Rory's house. And that was a pairing I wish we got more of. And so I really like the dynamic there. And it's got some good drama and good relationship, like friendship stuff for Rory and Paris as well.
Mm-hmm. What about for you, best Stars Hollow moments?
I mean, obviously Bracebridge, but another one that really sticks out is A Tisket a Tasket, because, you know, the whole town comes together to have this wacky auction for baskets of food, and it just becomes sort of hilarious. And it's spring, and the gazebo is covered in flowers, and Taylor Dosey is Taylor Doseying. Like, it's just another cozy one, but in more of like a lighthearted, springy, new beginnings kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Following that up with best moments, maybe one of the most heartwarming episodes for you that you've seen.
I think episode 17, Dead Uncles and Vegetables, is up there for me because, again, you know, it's kind of spoiled in the title, but one of Luke's relatives dies, his uncle, and Lorelai really shows up for him, and Rory does too as well. And another is Lorelai's graduation day. The nice moment with her parents really shines through in that one and tugs at the heartstrings.
Mm-hmm.
What about the funniest episode?
I actually have to say what always makes me chuckle the most is Road Trip to Harvard, just because of all of the scenes that we get at the Cheshire Cat and with all of the guests that are staying at this really eclectic feline based design pink tulle inn. Yep, there it is.
Satanic forces are at work here.
Yep. We get, I mean, Lorelai and Rory go so far as to not even wanting to leave their room just because they have no desire to want to interact with anyone who is staying in the inn, you know, doing things like bird watching and just other bizarre activities that they want no part of. So that always just, you know, gives me a lot of internal delight for the comedy aspect of it.
That's fair. I do love that as well. For me, it's probably Like Mother, Like Daughter, which is episode 7. Lorelai puts on a fashion show fundraiser with some of the sort of hoity-toity Chilton moms, and Rory is sucked into a secret society. So good times were had by all. Yeah. What about the best overall?
Again, I've got to give it to the finale, Lorelai's graduation day, just
That's
because.
Not the finale. I can't get started.
Okay, no, you're right. You're right. I keep thinking of it as the end, though, because for me, in my mind, I always just see it as like the best transition into season 3. But I really just love how, again, Rory is moving on in her life in more ways than one. With the men in her life, she's starting to, I think, contend with some hard and fast choices about what her post-Chilton life is going to look like, who she's going to be with. And so I really think it encapsulates her moving on, and also Lorelai starting to progress in her life as well, just with realizing that for all of the accomplishments that she's already had, that she is still not done, that she is still in her prime and ready to start achieving and taking on more, even with, you know, Suki and wanting to open up an inn and seeing what that is going to shape out to look like in the coming years.
Right. This is one of the ones where I had the hardest time. I put like 7 or 6. I don't know. Nick and Nora, Sid and Nancy, I think, is up there. Teach Me Tonight is amazing. Like Mother, Like Daughter is amazing. Graduation Day is amazing. And I Can't Get Started is the finale. And it leaves off on such a gut punch. And it's the highest rated one on IMDb, I think, for a reason. So all of those are very strong ones for me. And I had a hard time picking between them.
That's fair enough. I think that's going to close us out for season 2, unless you have anything else that you want to add there.
Nope, that'll do it. We got to blaze through these seasons. So directly on to season 3. Lorelai once again begins the season dealing with the relationship fallout from the previous season. Not only does she have to deal with her own disappointment, but Rory's and her parents' feelings over the whole thing as well. They were really invested in this relationship working out, and it doesn't. So we're not going to tell you who it's with, but also last chance to get out before even more spoilers. Forgot to say that before starting. But Okay. The situation with the Independence Inn hits a major turning point, and Lorelai is left contemplating how to move forward with her career. She gets a new beau mid-season, but things are complicated when an old flame returns to town. But season 3 is really Rory's season. There's a lot of focus on her choice of university now that she's in senior year. So we have episodes devoted to her applications, school tours, and having to decide between several great schools. She has a big relationship shakeup. Lane really starts coming into her own and rebelling against her mother's attempts. She's like really aiming for self-determination in a way that she hasn't had the courage to before. She dyes her hair and she becomes the drummer in a rock band. She gets a new boyfriend, and he's pretty universally beloved in the fandom. Luke meets a new woman, and things get serious pretty quickly for them. Jess deals with some family drama and more school drama because he's still not as devoted to it as Luke wants him to be. He's more concerned with making money and becoming independent. Suki has a couple big life transitions. Paris gets a new boyfriend, and her and Rory are running the student council together, which causes drama when another character tries to pit them against each other to get her own way. And last but not least, Chris has a big life change, which causes everyone to reflect on the past, leading to our only flashback episode of the entire series.
Yeah, I think I love season 4, I think the best. Season 3 is a very, very strong, close runner-up. This is where I think, like, we really, like, the ball just starts rolling, and everything is really, really picking up the pace more than we got even from season 2. So as we're getting into, like, the heart of the show, I think this is really when I start just checking off all of the boxes right and left for why this is continually done well.
I totally agree. Season 4 is also my favorite, with season 3 coming in right behind that. So totally on board with that. So my key episode list for this one is only 6 episodes. So starting off with episode 7, they shoot Gilmore's, where the town hosts a 24-hour dance marathon, which is awesome. There are impeccable costumes, funny gags, plenty of relationship drama. There's a big turning point for Rory. Then after that would be episode 8, Let the Games Begin, which is where Richard manipulates Rory and Lorelai into coming to Yale with him so that he can get Rory an interview with his friend, the Dean of Admissions. And that doesn't go over well with Lorelai. Then number 13, Dear Emily and Richard. Again, the only flashback episode of the series. This one goes over the story of Lorelai finding out she was pregnant at 16 and her family's reaction to the whole thing. And it's intertwined with scenes from the present. So it's crucial background information for a lot of the show. Next up is episode 16, the big one, where Rory and Paris find out their fate when it comes to which Ivy League schools they got into. Then episode 17, A Tale of Pose and Fire. A crisis at the end throws the town and Lorelai's life especially into chaos. And last but not least, Those Are Strings Pinocchio, which is Rory's graduation from Chilton and a bit of setup for the college years. So I would say, like, if you got to watch just a couple and make your way through that season, those are the ones you got to aim for.
Yep. I would echo that. I would start off with They Shoot Gilmore's, just for, again, what we get from Stars Hollow and the Townies. I would then follow that up and go to Deep Fried Korean Thanksgiving, because it, again, is just an additional follow-up with getting more involvement with Stars Hollow. I love how we get to really highlight Suki and Jackson a little bit more, and it's just a really fun and comedic episode, with just seeing Lorelai and Rory having to just split their time amongst 4 Thanksgivings that day. So that's just always really a delight for me. And then I would kick it back to Dear Emily and Richard, just because, again, I think the past shapes so much of who Lorelai is. So it's nice to finally be able to get some clarity there and some context for why some of those past choices affect her and Rory now.
Yeah, fair enough. Deep Fried Korean Thanksgiving is on my great episode list. I don't think it's as key to understanding the season, so that's why it didn't make my top 6. So still a great episode, though.
Mm-hmm.
I also really enjoy Take the Deviled Eggs. So Christopher's girlfriend is back, and she invites Lorelai and Rory to an event. I don't want to say any more than that because that will be spoilery, and it sends Lorelai spinning. So it's always fun to watch Lorelai kind of lose her marbles a little. It's a good one. And then I also really love Keg Max, which is episode 19. There's a big house party and things go sideways. There's drama. There is a fight that happens in that episode. There's some tension that comes to a head finally, and Lorelai runs into an ex. So we start to see her questioning herself too.
Yep. What would you say is most emblematic and represents season 3 the best for you?
I think it's got to be episode 16, the big one, because season 3 is so much about Rory's journey to the Ivy League, and the same for Paris. It's really a culmination and a turning point. Another one I think that's more on the relationship front is They Shoot Gilmores, Don't They? It's another big relationship moment. There's some forward progression for both girls in that regard. What about you?
Yeah, I would also echo and just say the big one, because Rory just receives some news in the mail about what her future is going to look like. And it's so important because that's what we have been told that she's been seeking season 1, season 2, season 3. All of the choices that she's made at Chilton and in her own life have just been getting her to the moment that we see in this episode. So I think it's just really emblematic of the path that she's had up until now. And now we're starting to see all of her previous choices pay off for her.
Mm-hmm. Which one has the coziest vibes?
I mean, Thanksgiving, and maybe it's just because we just celebrated American Thanksgiving here. So it's a mood right now. But it's just so, I mean, especially like Suki and Jackson's Thanksgiving that Lorelai and Rory attend. We've talked about it before, like which one would we want to go to most? I would just love to like sit in on a moment like that where it's just everyone's having fun, deep frying a turkey, maybe a little too much fun, deep frying a turkey, whether or not you should or should not be, even probably shouldn't, because that's just dangerous. But I think it's just seeing characters coming together to really just enjoy each other's company surrounding a holiday that's meant for that anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list. It's a little more dramatic, but it's quintessential fall. It's iconic for a reason. And another one that is less dramatic is That'll Do Pig, which is where they have the town's winter carnival. It's a little bit of relationship drama for Rory as she tries to balance like trying to be friends with her ex and the new guy getting jealous about that. But overall, it's just sort of, it's sweet in a way that some other episodes with relationship tension are not. So I like that one. All right. Best character interaction.
I would actually say Dear Emily and Richard, just because, again, I can't state enough how much I wish we would have gotten more context as to Lorelai's past. I wish we would have seen a little bit more of it to really help us understand why she is who we see her to be starting out from the pilot episode. So I think even the flashback interactions that we get, and I don't want to talk about them too much because I think they're just so wonderful to really go into not knowing what her past is like, are just so important to why she is the way that she is, specifically with Emily and Richard, and seeing those interactions really answer a lot of, I think, what were previously unanswered questions.
I agree with all those points. And I would add They Shoot Gilmores, Don't They? Has some great interaction as well because it is a big town event and it gets all the faves together for a wacky reason. So I love that one. Best Stars Hollow moments.
I mean, They Shoot Gilmore's, like this dance marathon where a certain Stars Hollow, I mean, it's a Stars Hollow event, so obviously a Stars Hollow townie is going to win it. But seeing that person having their winning moment was just hilarious. And I just think it's so, I don't know. It's just, it's delightful. It's enjoyable to watch. Taylor's just, losing his marbles to a certain extent, just trying to supervise this event. Miss Patty's there too, just, 24 hours of no sleep, but the town is just having fun amongst themselves. And I really love that.
Yeah, I agree. Another one I added was Face Off, which is where the high school hockey team is in the regional semifinals, I think, and it's the first time in years that they've made it. And so Rory and Lane go to a hockey game, and you've got Kirk, you've got Miss Patty and Babette singing the national anthem. Taylor Dosey has a ton of school spirit, even though he's a grown man. And some of the Dosey clan comes to town and they're like, Taylor, we grew up here. We don't need like a guided tour. So I think that one's pretty charming as well on the Stars Hollow front. And it's a little bit like underrated as an episode, I think, for me.
Yeah, I would agree. What would you say is your most heartwarming moment from this season?
It's got to be the finale. Those are strings, Pinocchio, when Rory delivers her graduation speech. Again, it's iconic. It's referenced and memed all the time because it's just that good.
Yeah. Same. I mean, go watch that speech. It's pretty solid. And it brings people to tears. So
yeah.
I'm not blubbering, you're blubbering.
I'm blubbering, you're freaks. What about the funniest episode?
This is hard. I think I'd have to go with Swan Song though. Because swans and things happening with said birds. Lakes.
Take the ladle. That's a new ladle. Take the baster.
Yeah, you don't want to get beaked by a swan because they will come after you. They are clearly, apparently out for blood. But I think there's just a lot there too between Luke and Jess that is also just really hilarious when they're going up against an actual swan.
Yeah, I love their dynamic, and it really comes through in that one. And another one I would add to that list is Take the Deviled Eggs. Again, I love Sherry because I think she's unintentionally funny sometimes, and Lorelai's reaction to her is always humorous to me because it's so overblown. And, you know, so she's kind of mad at Sherry and starts rearranging her medicine cabinet.
Mm-hmm. It's not passive aggressive.
Yeah. And then so Sherry implores them to take the deviled eggs, and they do something hilarious with them. I won't tell you what it is, but yes, that is paprika. So, love that one. All right. And last but not least, best overall.
I feel like I'm a broken record, but I really don't care. It's going to be They Shoot Gilmores. I think across all 7 seasons, that was probably one of the strongest and one of my most favorite episodes to just go back to on any day of the week. Just because, again, from character exploration to comedy, it was just well done across the board, and I love it.
Completely agree. Last but not least, Miss Me With That. I think you can totally skip episode 5. It's called 8 o'clock at the Oasis. The only good reason to watch it is that Milo Ventimiglia gets very wet. So if that's your thing, by all means, watch that. But other than that, it doesn't really have anything interesting or fun or memorable in any way. So skip that. I also don't love episode 18, Happy Birthday Baby. It's Lorelai's 35th birthday, and she gets a little bit of a financial windfall. And it doesn't go well for her when she tries to pay her parents back for Chilton. So that one, it's meh. I don't know that you really need to watch that one. And last but not least, Here Comes the Sun. This one's not a bad episode, but it's partially a backdoor pilot for a spin-off series that never happened. So it just feels really out of place. And a lot of people say skip it because it makes no sense in a lot of ways. It goes nowhere. It's a little bit of backstory and important stuff for Jess, but other than that, it's sort of one of those weird episodes that most people just don't like. What about you? Are there any that you would excise from the season where it's just don't need it?
Yep, Here Comes the Sun for all of the reasons that you just said, but I would also get rid of Face Off because as much as I'm a fan of the Rory and Jess dynamic and I'm a Team Jess stan, I feel like it harps a little bit too much on the drama and the problems that they were having. And yeah, okay, you're mad he didn't call. Lorelai, I think, is right. Move on with your life at some point and just don't linger on something like that. But I just didn't love even the scenes that we got there with her trying to escape from that, use Lane as a friend to try and take her mind off of it. It just got too, I think, muddled for me to really appreciate it.
You would not like that episode because you're Team Jess and he's not portrayed in a very favorable light in that one. I'm Canadian, so I gotta love the episode where there's a hockey game. Just, contractually, I think they might deport me to the UK to be with my fiance if they found out I was against the hockey episode, but neither here nor there. All right. So if you don't want to know anything past season 3, now's your time to escape. Go quick, get out. Okay, Laura, give us season 4.
All right. Season 4, I think we both agree, are our personal favorites across the board. seasons 1 through 7, including the revival. Obvious reasons that we'll talk about. But it starts off with Lorelai kicking off a huge dream project on the career front, even though money becomes a real struggle as the costs for that project continue to just mount up for her. Excuse me. Her friendship with Suki as a result of this is also put to the test as Suki's life and priorities start to shift to her family and not so much her career and her job. Rory starts university and has to adjust to living away from her mom for the first time, along with having 3 roommates who have dramas of their own. She also has to get used to the even more difficult workload that is presented by an Ivy League institution, as well as criticism from the editor of the school newspaper. Rory's also dealing with watching her ex move on in a big way, and by the end of this season, their friendship is majorly tested and also leads to a big mistake on Rory's part. Paris has a shakeup in her own relationship and starts dating someone controversial. Lane and her mom have a huge reckoning about Lane being able to live life on her own terms, which creates a lot of tension. They get a new band member played by a real hair metal musician who is famous in his own right, which is one of the favorite, I think one of your favorite minor characters. Luke's relationship takes a big turn. He starts having many ups and downs there before he has an important realization thanks to a very unlikely source. We also start to get some new characters thrown into the mix. Luke's sister, which is Jess's mom, and her boyfriend. Emily and Richard's relationship is strained by Richard's new business partnership with the son of an old rival. And that person also starts to take a romantic interest in Lorelai, with them having to hide their relationship, which causes huge problems for everybody. And then Emily finds out that Richard has been hiding something from her since they got married, and it causes her to become a little bit more unhinged, and that ends up pushing their relationship and their marriage to the edge.
Right. I think the key episodes that you need to watch to understand season 4, I put episode 1, Ballrooms and Biscotti, on this list, although I feel like most of the episode is not as important, but there's a big piece of information that you need to know at the very end. It's quite shocking. And it's kind of important background for what happened with Luke over the summer while the girls were in Europe. And so this is when they're coming back from their backpacking trip before Rory goes off to school, and they're prepping for her to go to college. But it's really Luke, I think, that has the most shocking thing as part of his storyline in that episode. So it's just kind of important for background info. But then if you don't really care about that and you're cool to sort of piece it together and figure it out, skip ahead to episode 2, the Lorelai's first day at Yale, which is the one where Rory moves into her college dorm, and she gets a big surprise when she gets there, which is fun. This is one of the most universally beloved, I think, episodes in the whole series. Pretty much everyone loves that episode, and it's, again, something she's been working towards this whole time, and so it's crucial. Then for me, my next pick is Ted Koppel's Big Night Out, which is episode 9. Rory and Lorelai attend a tailgate for the Harvard-Yale game with Emily and Richard, but things take a dramatic turn when Emily finds out that Richard has been keeping a big secret from her for their whole marriage. There's a lot going on with Emily and Richard in the season, and this lays the foundation for that. Next up, I would go to episode 12, A Family Matter, which is when Luke's sister finally comes to town and brings her new boyfriend, and Lorelai brings her new beau to Stars Hollow for the first time. So that one's fun. Then episode 18, Tick, 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 Boom. Richard and Jason's business gets a major challenge from Jason's dad, and Lorelai and Jason's secret romance causes problems when it comes out. Episode 20, Luke can see her face. After a big breakup, Luke turns to an unlikely source for some relationship wisdom and guidance that leads him to a very important revelation. And this episode's just hilarious. I don't even want to say anything about it because I want you to experience it for yourself. Anything I say would be spoilery. Next after that, episode 21, Last Week Fights, This Week Tights. Liz and TJ get married in a Renaissance-themed wedding in the town square. So that's chef's kiss. Beautiful, hilarious, but also touching and heartwarming. And we get the return of a favorite character who hasn't been around for a while, so that's good times. And last but not least, Raincoats and Recipes. This is the highest rated episode on IMDb for a good reason. It is an incredible episode. Lorelai's new business has a test run before its official opening, which brings a lot of butting heads under one roof. And Rory takes a big step, but also makes a huge mistake. So that's 8 episodes out of the 22 that I think are crucial for the season. For me, season 4 is really a grower, not a shower. there are so many people who previously didn't love season 4, but the more you rewatch, I think the more you appreciate this season for how good the writing is. The dynamic changes a little bit because Rory and Lorelai are no longer physically in the same place all the time now that they live apart. But I think they managed to do it in such a way that it really, really works. And it's just as funny, just as heartwarming, just as important as ever. And it's just so strong and underrated.
Yeah. My choices are pretty much already what you have listed. I just took a couple of out. I would have started with Lorelai's first day at Yale because obviously this is Rory just entering into the next chapter of her life, and that's really important for a million and one obvious reasons. I would then just go to Ted Koppel's big night out because then we're seeing Rory in her element at Yale now. Also seeing how obviously this huge secret that Richard has been keeping starts to factor into their marriage. And we see Lorelai starting to just progress in her relationship with a new man and how that's factoring in not only amongst the two of them, but also how that plays into what Emily and Richard kind of have going on in their own way. Then I would just go right to Tick, 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 Boom, because we see, obviously, just like what I said, how Lorelai and the relationship that she's having with Jason now are factoring into problems with Emily and Richard because of their business dealings and how that is all falling apart. Again, I just don't want to say too much because I really just want anyone watching this to experience all of this for themselves because it was just so juicy to have to unfold with all of the drama. And then I do love Raincoats and Recipes, and I can definitely understand why it's highly rated. But I would almost say, like, you could potentially, if you had to, just leave off with Tick, 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 Boom, and then just go right into season 4.
I don't know, like Raincoats and Recipes. I know that, okay, so season 5 starts with a bit of a rehash of the end of season 4. It's sort of like the same scene but from a different perspective, and so you get a lot of the same information, but I think you lose something by not actually watching that episode, especially on the Lorelai front. Like, it's let's just say that there's a big moment that the fandom waits for until that episode, and it delivers. There's a lot of forward motion and big things that happen in that episode, so I really don't think you can skip it.
That's fair.
A couple of others that I really love from the season, and like I said, one of my favorite seasons. It was very hard to narrow this down. I love Incredible Sinking Lorelai's, where Lorelai and Rory are a bit estranged from each other. Like, they're just having trouble catching each other on the phone, and their busy schedules prevent them from leaning on each other while they go through like individual personal crises. So Luke and Dean step in to provide some emotional support. And I don't know, I just really like that one. Mm-hmm. The Reigning Lorelai is also excellent. A family member dies, like not one of the core 4, but someone else dies. And the fallout is dramatic, especially for Emily. And this is what Kelly Bishop calls her Tennessee Williams episode. So she gets to come totally unhinged, which is some of the funniest work she ever gets to do on this show. And it's brilliant. And despite the fact that it's an episode about a funeral, it's quite funny, but not in a really inappropriate way. So love that one. And then I also love After Boom, which is episode 19. It's right after Tick, 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 Boom. So it's all the aftermath and the fallout that comes from all of that. I think the end of season 4 is possibly the strongest run of episodes that happened in the entire series. Like, for me, there are no skips.
I have a skip with season 4, and it's called The Nanny and the Professor.
That is like the one skip that you could get from the series. But I mean, like, for the end.
Okay. Of the season. I will say, I mean, season 4 is so strong. Like, literally that episode that I just alluded to is the only thing that I really just say, like, I don't marginally like about it. Other than that, it was just, again, it's both of our favorite seasons for reasons. There was very little about it to not love.
Indeed. Okay. Which would you say is the most representative of the season?
Rory's first day at Yale. Or first day at Yale. I mean, again, this is what we've been waiting for. We've just been hyped up with Rory just to see what her post-high school years are going to look like. Now we're finally here. I love getting those interactions with her new roommates, seeing what and how her life is going to look like, how she's going to manage her schoolwork, just her, new levels of socialization for someone who has previously just been wanting to like read alone with her headphones in at the lunch table in high school. It's just finally starting to see her taking that next step and move on in her life.
I also put that on my list. The other one I put was Raincoats and Recipes. And I find it interesting because it sort of bookends the season, where the beginning of the season is so much about Rory and her storyline. But then Raincoats and Recipes has such a culmination for Lorelai, for her season and her struggle, for her business and her career, but also on the personal relationship front. And so it's interesting that at the two poles we have crucial moments for both of them. And I just think they're both such strong and beloved episodes for good reason. And they just really sum up season 4 for me.
Yep. I actually didn't have anything for this one because there was really nothing that stood out for me in terms of this category. But did you have anything for like coziest moments or vibes this season?
I put the fundamental things apply, which is episode 5. The season hasn't really started cooking yet, and it's just a very simple episode where Rory goes on a first date with a guy that she meets in class. So it's her branching out. It's a little awkward, but it's good to see her sort of spreading her wings a little. And then Luke and Lorelai have a movie night, and it's very sweet. So I think it's just one of those very low stakes episodes. Part of me almost wants to put it in the miss me with that category. But yeah, season 4 isn't really cozy. It's a very different dynamic. Everything's a little bit like higher stakes, and or the characters are maybe not making the best decisions. And so like you can't rightly call it a cozy episode.
That's fair enough. Moving on from that, best character interactions this season.
If you like Paris and Rory and their crew and like their Chilton vibes, Girls in Bikinis, Boys Doing the Twist, which is where they go on spring break to Florida. That episode's hilarious. Or if Stars Hollow is more of your vibe, then the Festival of Living Art has so many like fun character moments and interactions, and the addition of the new character mentioned in the summary of a member of Lane's band who's played by a real metal musician. So I love that one. What about you?
I also said Girls in Bikinis just because I was always so happy to see us get back Madeline and Louise, even if it's just for one episode. I wish we would have gotten more of them, even them, showing up just again further down the line and just gotten more scenes with them. But I think their interactions when they're just having, like essentially just a girls' trip and they're sitting around the table, drunk dialing one of Rory's exes. Delightful.
Yeah. Best Stars Hollow moments.
Festival. I mean, obviously it says it in the title, but the entire town comes together to just embody actual paintings and previous works of art, in a very physical setting. And it's fun to see Taylor kind of just self-imploding, I think, whether he wants to admit it or not, just over the stress of it, but just also the delight with winning this festival over the neighboring town. And I just love all those moments when Taylor just is like that. I'll say that.
Yeah, he loves getting one up on Harry from Woodbury, and he definitely has his moment in this one. And we get to see Kirk as Jesus for the second time. So that's always fun. And again, big moment for Suki. So one of our favorite beloved townies has a pretty big role in that episode. What about the most heartwarming?
Heartwarming. I'd probably have to go with Luke Can See Her Face, because the chemistry for this moment has been built up again since season 1. And it's just Luke finally doing enough self-introspection to realize what he wants out of his own life and to stop denying that for himself.
And I also love that he passes the lessons he learns in that episode on to Jess as well. There's, again, mildly spoilery, but there is a way in which he sort of passes on some wisdom, which I love for them both. And I would also add to that scene in a mall. because Emily has been having a rough time personally. She's lacking purpose in her life a little bit, and she runs into Lorelai and Rory while they're shopping, and first she has a meltdown in a department store, but then she has some really beautiful moments with her daughter and her granddaughter, and it's really nice to see Emily get a little bit of that introspection as well.
Yeah. What would you say are some of your favorite funny moments from season 4?
Episode 3, The Hobbit, the Sofa, and Digger Styles, is hilarious to me. As a fantasy fan, and my fiance's big into Lord of the Rings, there's a party that they throw for some kids that's Lord of the Rings themed, and so there's some fun humor mined out of that, if you understand the references, it's very funny. And then the Festival of Living Art, again, is just so funny. It's ridiculous. Again, Kirk is Jesus. You can't go wrong. And last but not least, last week fights, this week fights. It's a wedding in Stars Hollow with Liz and TJ, who are some of the wackiest characters in the whole show. And Kirk is the DJ. It's funny. I like that one. What about you?
Yeah, I would again go with Festival of Living Art just because of Kirk as Jesus. Taylor just one-upping everybody, and then even the disruptive moment that we get during Lorelai coming on stage for her moment in the festival, thanks to I don't want to spoil it. I mean, it's not really like a huge spoiler, but just what Suki has going on is disrupting Lorelai's moment at the festival with just an alert, so to say. And then just Lorelai having to just poker face it through it. Hilarious.
Yeah. For best overall, I gotta go with Raincoats and Recipes. I think that episode has everything. It's so important. It's the hinge of the whole series for me. And I just think it's so strong.
I'd have to take it back to the start and go with First Day at Yale. I mean, again, just because it's the transition that we have been waiting for. And it's basically Rory's part 2 within Gilmore. I feel like seasons 1 through 3 are just like the start of her life, and it's just part 1 for her. And then part 2 is just seasons 4 through 7 for her, because she'll start meeting new people, getting with new partners, just really becoming a more outgoing person, standing on her own 2 feet. Not all the time. She falls back on some nepotism, I think a little bit too much. But it's basically her turning the page into the next chapter of her life. And I think it's just a really important moment and episode for her and for the show itself.
It's very much up there for me too. All right. That wraps us up for season 4. So once again, your cue to exit if you must, before we get into some of these later seasons. These ones get a lot more dramatic, and the further into this we go, the more is going to be quote unquote spoiled. So now's your chance. All right, season 5. Lorelai's career is booming, and she's gaining some recognition from a big name in the hotel business and getting on the radar of American travel. She's also basking in the glow of a new relationship, but it's not all sunshine and daisies, as Emily and Richard try to interfere because they don't think this guy is good enough for her. Rory meets a new guy who's not her usual type, and she gets sucked into his world, which concerns Lorelai because he, his friends, and his family are exactly the kind of people that she ran away from. Rory gets an internship working for her boyfriend's dad, but she doesn't impress him the way she hoped, and it causes her to do something drastic. By the end of the season, Rory's made a stunning decision, and it results in long-term consequences for her and strains her relationship with her mom. Both Lane and Paris get new beaux. Lane and the band also need to have a bit of a come-to-Jesus moment about the direction the band is going and how seriously they're going to take pursuing making it big. There's another big turning point for Lane and her relationship with her mom. And Chris struggles with relationship problems in parenting, as well as the loss of his father, with whom he had a strained relationship, and he turns to Rory and Lorelai for support because they need drama in this season. So, yeah. Key episodes for me are, you could probably start with episode 3, Written in the Stars. There is a long-awaited first date, and we get several new characters introduced, so that's a crucial one. Episode 7, You Jump, I Jump, Jack, one of the most iconic episodes of the whole series. Rory gets involved in a secret society as part of an article for the Yale Daily News and goes to one of their secret events. And it just has some of the most iconic visuals and character interactions of everything. So it's also one of those episodes that's very much up there on people's lists as being one of the best. Then episode 13, Wedding Bell Blues. This is the 100th episode of the season, of the series. And drama explodes at a family wedding. So again, saying much more than that would be very spoilery, so I won't. But again, one of the best of the whole series. Then I would say episode 21, Blame Booze and Melville. Rory gets some tough feedback at her internship from her boyfriend's dad and winds up in hot water because she has a little mentee bee. And last, episode 22, the series or season finale, A House Is Not a Home, which sees Rory making a huge decision that Lorelai doesn't agree with, and it causes a rift. Rory turns to her grandparents for help, and in the fallout, an impulsive Lorelai makes a big decision for herself.
Mm-hmm. Some slight deviations, but not anything too drastic. I would actually just start off with A Messenger, Nothing More, because I think it's Rory running away from her problems, which is not the first time in the show that we've ever seen her do that. But when things aren't going her way, she just doesn't know how to process. And so she dips out of her reality at the start of season 5 just to try and escape some of that. But I would follow it up by You Jump, I Jump, Jack, because when she eventually does return to that reality and starts getting some of her ish figured back out, I think that's really important to start seeing some of her interactions with this new guy that's coming into her life, what he's introducing her to and opening her eyes to. And as much as I'm not on that person's team, he does good work there. God, it stings every single freaking time. And then I would just follow that up by, like you said, Wedding Bell Blues, which I think is honestly one of my favorite episodes of season 5 in its entirety for multiple reasons. And then I would just close it off with Blame Booze and Melville because, again, it just defaults back to Rory once again, not having things going her way. She's not able to process it. She makes mistakes because of it. And it really just shuts down season 5 for her, having just really a downturn and a tailspin, and seeing what she's going to do with that and how she's going to face that and combat that as we head into season 6.
Fair enough. A couple others that I love from the season are episode 6, Norman Mailer, I'm Pregnant. I just kind of want that title to speak for itself. I'm not going to tell you anything about that. Norman Mailer shows up and there's a pregnancy. But what else happens? Then number 8, The Party's Over. Rory's grandparents throw her what Lorelai terms the male Yale party, wherein they invite all of their Yale alumni friends and their sons so that she can meet someone quote-unquote appropriate to date and marry. So it's a bit of a meat market. And she is in a relationship at this time, so drama. Then 16, So Good Talk. Luke isn't happy in his personal life and is taking it out on everyone. And Rory moves things forward with her new guy and tells Lorelai about it, and she's not thrilled. And number 17, Pulp Friction. Rory is casually dating in this episode, but when Logan's friend invites Rory as his date to a mutual friend's Tarantino-themed birthday party, Logan's not happy to see her with someone else. So there's some good, juicy drama in that one. And a Tarantino party, which is clever and unique, shall we say. And written by one of our faves, Stan Zimmerman.
We stan.
We do.
A lot of good moments in season 5, but we've got to eat something. So what's it going to be?
Oh God, season 5 has, I think, my least favorite episode. I will still take Runaway Little Boy over episode 5. We Got Us a Pippi Virgin. I can't stand that episode. It's one of the few where I'm like, this is actively terrible. It doesn't just not move the plot forward, but it is actively annoying and hard to watch. Let's just say that Rory and her beau and Lorelai and her beau go on a double date, and the guys do not get along, and it is very hard to watch. And another one that I would say is also episode 4, which is called Tippecanoe and Taylor 2. There's the first contested election for town selectmen in years, and it's just kind of boring. Not really here for it. It's funny to watch some Stars Hollow politics, but other than that, it's like meh.
Yeah. Mine was honestly just Tippecanoe for the reasons that you said. I was just like, can we just get to like what's next? Like, it just felt like a slog. Like, there's no plot progression. Happy for Jackson that he had a cool moment within the town and there's an accomplishment there, but what else does it do for us? Nothing really.
Yeah. All right. What's the most representative of the season?
Wedding Bell Blues. Again, my favorite of this entire season. I think there's a lot of important things that are going on here. It is the 100th episode of the show, so there was definitely celebrations for that. And I think that's probably why they went a little bit more all in on it, so to say. But it starts turning over a lot of leaves for these characters, and I don't want to say much more to spoil it. Go watch that episode, but it's a really good turning page for a lot of the major characters and for some new life advancements.
Yeah, totally. I think the coziest episode is Women of Questionable Morals, episode 11. Richard and Emily find a dog in their yard, and it's super cute that they like take care of it and try to find its owner. And the town's Revolutionary War reenactment gets a hilarious update. And then there's some nice moments between Chris and Rory and Lorelai. This is the one where his dad dies, and so there's just it's fun to see them, I think, have these sweet moments together. And this is also an episode where Luke does something kind of iconic for Lorelai. That's very cute, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And then we also have best character interaction, which is Wedding Bell Blues for me as well. But I've already talked about why I love it. Shed some more light on those character interactions and why you appreciate it too.
Again, we just have so many great characters all together under the same roof. Richard, Emily, Rory, Logan, Lorelai, Luke, Christopher, all of these like key core characters have big moments with each other that you don't always get to see. Like, especially, on the Luke and Christopher front, I'm not going to tell you what happens with them, but how many times do you see them interacting in the first couple of seasons? Not very much. So it's shaking up the dynamic for everybody, basically. And everybody has a juicy plotline in that episode. It's perfect.
Yep. And following that up, best Stars Hollow moments for you.
Ooh. Women of Questionable Morals, the aforementioned update to the war reenactment, possibly one of the funniest things that happens in the whole series. I don't want to spoil too much, but it does involve Kirk. So that's how you know it's going to be hilarious. I think To Live and Let Diorama, episode 18, is also a good one because Taylor opens a Stars Hollow museum, which is predictably pretty lame. And Rory, Paris, and Lane all attend the opening of it, and they get drunk together because they're all a little bit like unhappy and unsure in their relationships, and it's just really funny.
Yeah. Founders Day punch, it can really knock you on your ass sometimes. Miss Patty does good work there.
Yeah, let it remove the tar from our souls.
Yeah. But following that up, we'll get to most heartwarming, but since that is a comedic moment for me, just seeing these three women get completely lit at that event, what's another funny moment from this season for you?
Again, Women of Questionable Morals. Kirk in that episode is the best. I love Kirk so much, and it's up there in one of the most memorable moments that he has in the whole series.
Yeah, I think we have fridge magnets highlighting that moment as well. I know I do.
Looking it over my fridge, I'm like, I
definitely do, and it's hilarious. Yeah, go watch that because you will never look at Kirk the same way ever again, I don't think, after that, nor should you, because it was just amazing. But now we'll go back to what are some of your best heartwarming moments.
I think Written in the Stars is the winner for me because, like I said, it's got a long-awaited first date, and Paris is going through something personally, and Rory's kind of really there for her, and she has a few boy interactions, shall we say, that maybe I don't love, but I don't know, there's something to them. And yeah, I just think the I am all in of it all, and the horoscope, which you won't understand until you actually watch the episode, but like those are some iconic relationship moments for Lorelai, and it doesn't get much better than that for her.
And as we shut down season 5, best episode heading into season 6.
Wedding Bell Blues.
Yep.
Just top to bottom, a beautifully done episode.
Yep, go watch it if you haven't gotten enough out of this season 5 portion of this episode. That episode's just okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we are going to head into season 6 now. So again, if you want to stop here and you don't want any spoilers for season 6, there's the door. We will not be mad as you see yourself out. We totally get it.
This is where stuff really starts to hit the fan. So like if you don't want to know what's coming, even remotely, go.
Okay, well, we've given you your shot, so here we go, folks. Season 6, Lorelai and Herbo make a big decision to move their relationship forward, but the addition of a new character upends his life entirely, and it causes him to push Lorelai away, pushing their relationship to the brink. Lorelai's relationship with Rory is also on the rocks for the first part of the season, as she doesn't agree with the decisions Rory is making and wants her to get back on track in life. Rory also has to deal with the consequences of some of her impulsive behavior from the end of last season, stemming from some poor interactions with Mitchum. Her relationship is still progressing well until a blast from the past shows up to kick her in the ass a little bit and causes her to reflect on some of her choices those last few months. Rory's relationship with her grandparents is also struggling because of their increased involvement in her life, and she finally gets a taste of the Emily and Richard that Lorelai experienced growing up. The Emily and Richard who aimed to control her life entirely and constantly had her under their thumb. Lane's band is also hitting a major rough patch, which also negatively impacts her relationship with her boyfriend. But by the end of the season, she has made another huge life decision that changes everything. And Paris ends up taking over as editor of the school paper, but her authoritative leadership style doesn't go over well, which also causes tension with Rory as she tries to temper Paris's worst tendencies, and the other staffers on the paper can't handle Paris's unreasonable standards.
I think the key episodes, if you really want to truncate season 6, you got to start at the beginning, I think, with new and improved Lorelai, which is where Rory faces the music for her choices last season and gets hit with major consequences. She moves into her grandparents' pool house for the summer, and Lorelai revels in how well her relationship is going as a distraction from her conflict with Rory. So that one's really juicy. Very important for setting the stage for the whole season. Then I think you can skip ahead to episode 7. 21 is the loneliest number. Rory's 21st birthday doesn't look as she planned because she's still fighting with Lorelai, but Emily throws in, or can't talk anymore. Emily throws a big party where Rory and Lorelai catch up, and Rory catches up with Paris about what's happening in her life, which kind of doesn't feel good for Rory. She's definitely starting to rethink, like, ooh, I'm missing a lot here. Then episode 8 is iconic. It's called Let Me Hear Your Balalaikas Ringing Out. A familiar face returns to town to see Rory with an announcement, but trouble ensues when Rory's boyfriend tags along to their dinner plans, and the guys butt heads. And it leads to one of the most iconic lines in the show that, again, won't spoil for you. Then you have to watch episode 9. Like, this is pivotal. The prodigal daughter returns. A new character comes to town to drive a wedge between Luke and Lorelai, and Rory starts taking steps to get her life back on track. Then in episode 13, Friday Night's All Right for Fighting, there's one of the most iconic Friday night dinner scenes in the whole show. And Rory is kind of on the outs with her grandparents after abruptly moving out of their house. But Lorelai encourages them to reconcile. So they all go over to Emily and Richard's house to hash things out. And Kenny Ortega directs one of the funniest, most unique scenes in the entire thing. It's frequently credited as one of the best scenes, one of the best Friday night dinners that they ever did. Then episode 19, I Get a Sidekick Out of You. There's an iconic Stars Hollow wedding. And last but not least, the season finale, Partings, which sees Rory's beau moving away for work, and Lorelai has had enough of her beau not committing to moving forward with her because he processes things emotionally at a snail's pace. So a lot of big relationship drama at the end of season 6.
Yeah. Once again, mine is pretty similar, just cutting out a couple of yours just because I really narrowed it down a little bit more. I do think you need to start off with new and improved Lorelai because Rory's getting dropped kick in the face by some poor life choices, as she rightly should, because someone if not life itself, just needed to give that girl the what's for to kind of get her to wake up. And I think that's what we're starting to see here. I would then just move on to Balalaika's, because as she's dealing with all of the reckoning from these poor life choices, someone is coming back in to kind of like be that wake up call for her and shake her. So I think that's really important. I would then go to Friday Night's All Right for Fighting, just because, like you said, it is one of the most iconic Friday night dinner scenes where I think all of the tension that was bubbling under the surface for all of our characters for some of these life choices, but also for some of their relationships and their own internal family dynamics, is just kind of being volcanically exploded out into the universe at that point in time. And it's hilarious. So go back and watch that if nothing else. And then I would just fast forward to partings, because again, Rory's person in her life at that point in time is not leaving her, but is just, doing his own thing in life at that point in time. And like you said, it's juxtaposed with Lorelai realizing that the person that I want to be my person is not meeting me on my level, so I have to make a choice there.
Mm-hmm. A couple others that I think are excellent are We've Got Magic to Do. Rory's enlisted to run a Daughters of the American Revolution fundraiser, and she comes face to face with her boyfriend's parents, Shira and Mitchum, who she hates. And one of Emily's most epic takedowns happens in that episode, so worth the watch just for that. And Miss Patty throws her annual recital for all of her students, including Kirk. So if you're ready to be disturbed, there's that. And then Just Like Gwen and Gavin, I think, is also kind of an underrated episode, and it's the one where Lorelai finds out about Luke's big secret. So watching her reaction to that fallout is pretty important. And there's a fortune-telling dog in this episode. How can you go wrong with that? I also really love Vineyard Valentine. This is another one that I think gets some unfair hate. Logan, Rory, Lorelai, and Luke all go to Martha's Vineyard for Valentine's Day. So it gives everybody a chance to sort of get away from all the drama. And it's funny because it's very clearly not filmed on Martha's Vineyard in February, but it's I think it's still a really good episode where relationships move forward quite a bit. And another one that I personally love is Bridesmaids Revisited, where Logan's sister gets married, and the bridesmaids give Rory some bad news about Logan that she really doesn't want to hear. So another juicy, complicated episode.
Yep. In terms of season 6, there's actually nothing for me that I would feel like I need to yeet out of here. But did you have anything?
The only one that I would say isn't integral necessarily to the season is episode 4, Always a Godmother, Never a God. And at some points in this episode, I think that some of the characters are really annoying, especially Lorelai and Suki. So I feel like that's one that you could potentially hop over if you're not into that. So yeah. What about the most representative of the season?
Yeah, I've got to go with Prodigal Daughter, just because it is just holy moly of a revelation, and it really just shakes the foundation for so many of our main characters' lives at this point in time. Even for someone who's watching, it's just a slap in the face of something that I think you would have never seen coming, and now you're just shocked yourself, but also just nervous for your characters, because it's a revelation that could really disrupt everything that we've come to have established as what we thought was a rock solid foundation for some people at this point in time.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. I think in terms of coziest vibes, it's not really a very cozy season, but I would say that The Perfect Dress, maybe, it's kind of a continuation of the drama from Prodigal Daughter Returns. And it's funny because a lot of the ones that we're saying is like the coziest of the season happens to be the one where the first snowfall happens. So there's the first snowfall, and there's I don't know. It's really hard to say anything about this episode without spoiling it, so I'm going to try to avoid that. But I always really liked that episode.
Yeah, that's fair. What would you say, though, just pinballing off of that, not very, very cozy, because there were a lot of maybe contentious moments and some juicy interactions. What would you say were some of those best interactions?
I think either Let Me Hear Your Balalaikas ringing out, because we get the return of a beloved character. Mm-hmm. And we get to see like Rory's boyfriend interacting with someone from her world, and it's very different. So that one's fun. And of course, we have some like tension between Emily and Rory. Or Friday Night's All Right, because of that big family showdown that happens at the end. It doesn't get much better than the chemistry, I think, that is felt in those moments where they're just all yelling at each other for several minutes straight or hours straight in real time.
That's fair enough.
Okay, what do you think are some of the best Stars Hollow moments from that episode or that season?
I would say just the moments from We've Got Magic to Do, just with like these kids putting on like this show-stopping number, and then Miss Patty's like super, super proud of it, but everyone else is kind of just like, this is a bit much. What's going on here? Can we like tamper this down a little bit? It's emblematic of what we expect from Miss Patty, but I think it was just like in its own way reminiscent for me of like a town hall meeting where everyone's just like, instead of Taylor, calm down, maybe Miss Patty just put a clamp on it a little bit. This is excessive.
That's fair. I had Welcome to the Dollhouse because Taylor decides it would be a good idea to change all the street names to make the town more appealing to tourists. And let's just say Lorelai doesn't love her street name because it calls to mind oozing pus-infested sores. Okay, just completely out to left field. Like, you would never come up with this stuff, and it's very funny somehow.
Yep.
And another one I think is quite funny is actually Partings, because the town troubadour gets discovered and is set to go open up for Neil Young on tour. And so everybody hears about this, like the troubadour community, I guess, hears about this, and they all flock to Stars Hollow. So there's a bunch of people playing music in the town square all at once, and Taylor's really mad about it, and it's very funny.
Yeah. Do you have a most or a biggest heartwarming moment for you from the season?
In a way, I think Prodigal Daughter is very heartwarming. There's a line, "Do you want a Capri Sun?" that I think encapsulates that, where it's like, I don't even know how to discuss it without spoiling it, because it is just one of those like big shocking moments, and I really don't want to get too far into it, but just there's some nice like family kind of stuff going on in this episode, and the Lorelai Rory stuff really comes to a head as well, and it's very gratifying on that front.
Yeah, I would concur with that. And again, it's such a huge revelation that I don't even want to say anything else about it. I want you to experience that for yourself. I will say my funniest episode, Friday Night's All Right for Fighting. Like you said, that Kenny Ortega directed Friday night dinner scene is a masterpiece. It's just a work of art in terms of, again, camera work, how it was filmed, in terms of just a single shot and just moving from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and just how this dialogue probably had to be rehearsed so extensively, and the scene probably had to be practiced so many times to execute it in the way that it was. But it's just perfect with basically Lorelai, Rory, Emily, and Richard finally just airing all of these grievances and all of these things that they've been sitting on, even going back to Lorelai's teenage years with her pregnancy, and just venting out all of these frustrations, even when some of it's just rehashed. Not all of it is necessarily new, but just brilliant.
Mm-hmm. And I would put it as my best overall, I think, for the season. It's just so good. I don't think they'd manage to top it in that year.
I don't think they have either, but that is going to take us into the final season of the main show, season 7. So unless you object, I'm just going to continue on and just lead us into how we get our show closing us out here.
Yep. So again, this is the season where Amy and Dan have left in the roles of showrunner and writers. So this is, I would say, the weakest season. I think everybody agrees with that. In the words of Taylor Swift, everybody agrees. Everybody agrees. So once again, we have Lorelai starting a season by dealing with the breakdown of a relationship and having to deal with the fallout of that. She seeks comfort in the arms of an old flame, and they initially try out having a real relationship, but the Dan Quayle fantasies don't last very long. Rory is in her senior year and is dealing with a long-distance relationship with her beau as he enters the work world, and he has some struggles of his own in business when one of his deals goes south. As Rory nears the end of school, the end of the defined path that she's been on forever and was always so focused on, she struggles to make decisions about the future and fears the unknown. She has to make some big decisions at the end between several enticing possibilities for her life as she graduates. Richard gets an interesting professional opportunity, but also has a health scare that puts everything into perspective for everyone in the family. And Emily struggles keeping their household afloat while he recovers. Lane gets a big surprise that changes the course of her life. And Paris barrels full steam ahead towards postgraduate education and has to make some difficult decisions on which path to take in life and how involved her boyfriend will be in that. So, but even with this being the weakest season, it still gets a 7.8 average on IMDb. So when even your worst season of television is better than a lot of shows on TV, like I think there was still something good about this season. It is my least favorite, but I don't hate it the way that some people do.
Yeah, I would concur. It definitely missed the mark, and even some of the actors on the show have just said themselves that they did not love some of the choices that were made for their character, that they were bored by the writing themselves, that it still made it very hard to continue to want to embody their respective roles. But they still did it well enough, and it's not Game of Thrones season 8. So I will just say that.
I mean, it's really hard to stoop that low.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they did as good a job wrapping it up as they could. Let's put it that way.
That being said, what are your episodes that are must-watches from the season?
Just a couple on this one. So I think you have to watch episode 2. That's what you get, folks, for making Whoopi. Rory is bummed that she doesn't get to travel Asia with Logan, so Lorelai tries to cheer her up. But when Rory finds out what happened with her mom, she's pretty angry. And Lane gets some big shocking news. Then skip ahead to episode 7, French twist. Lorelai goes to Paris with her boyfriend and does something most of the fandom agrees is very stupid. So, very important, very stupid. Then episode 12, To Whom It May Concern. It's very spoilery to say anything about this episode, but trust us, it slaps. Then I think Farewell, My Pet, episode 14, is very important. One of Michelle's Chow Chows dies right when Lorelai's in the middle of a personal crisis, and he asks Lorelai and Suki to plan a dog funeral. So once again, season 1 and season 7 are bookended by pet funerals. But Lorelai has a goodbye of her own to say, and she's got to do her own mourning. Logan turns 25 and gets some bad news about a business deal. Then the next important episode is Unto the Breach, episode 21. Rory graduates from school and also gets a major proposition from Logan to move away from Connecticut with him. And then episode 22, series finale. Like a very, very solid end, I think, to the main series of the show. Very important. Well done on a season that was a little bit shaky. Rory gets a job opportunity and the town pitches in to throw her a goodbye party. So again, absolutely crucial to watch the series finale because it's awesome.
Yeah, my list was pretty much exactly the same. Only change is that I would just remove Farewell, My Pet. But everything else that you said from start to finish is important because it highlights the start of the season. And obviously, Rory getting some upheavals in her life, eventually getting some ultimatums from some very important people in her life, and how those ultimatums ultimately affect her life choices by the end of the season and the decisions that she makes for herself moving forward based off of what she's been hit with.
Yeah. Some other great ones. And like, again, I had some surprising picks in this season for I like that episode quite a bit. Episode 4, Wonderful Smarvelous. Lorelai goes on a very sweet date, but gets interrupted by Emily because she's gotten herself in trouble and she calls Lorelai to rescue her. Number 8, introducing Lorelai Planetarium. Lorelai delivers some big news to Rory, and again, Rory's not very happy. Rory goes to a work party with Logan and makes some professional connections. And so there's a guy who runs an online magazine and asks her to submit a piece for it. And Logan's not impressed by what she writes because it takes aim kind of at him and his friends and colleagues. So a little bit of Rory-Logan drama. Episode 13, I'd Rather Be in Philadelphia, which is Richard suffering a medical scare. And it, once again, kind of brings some important relationship stuff to the surface for everybody. Gilmore Girls Only is episode 17. Rory and Lorelai take a road trip for the wedding of the former owner of the Independence Inn, aka the woman who took a teenage Lorelai and infant Rory in and acted like a surrogate mother. But when Emily tags along and gets invited to the wedding at the last minute, she's uncomfortable with the easy affection. So I think that's a great one for the three Gilmore women and their dynamic. And then another one I really love, so kooky, Hay Bale Maze. Taylor Dosey co-ops the entire Spring Fling Festival to turn the town square into a giant hay bale maze, which is definitely not a hilarious metaphor for all of the characters being at a fork in the road and needing to figure out how to navigate a way forward. And Kirk definitely doesn't dress up as a Minotaur.
No, doesn't do that at all.
Are there any that you think could be yeeted from this season that are just really not important?
Okay, I will say I didn't have an episode. Like my yeet for this one, I kind of deviated. I wouldn't yeet an episode. I want to yeet people.
Oh.
Specifically Olivia and Lucy. Yeet.
Okay. Yeah, I love Kristen Ritter, but bye.
I think that whole storyline with that weird, just last minute show friendship between the two of them was just so not relevant. It didn't do anything for me. Again, wonderful actresses, but I just thought like it was just such a bore for me. I thought it brought nothing to the show that we really needed at that point in time as things are winding down for us. So that would be my yeet. Sorry, ladies.
That is fair. Okay, most representative of the season.
The end game. You know, like we said, I don't want to spoil it, but Rory has to make some hard and fast choices based off of some questions that have been posed to her, and her answers to those questions then dictate what the next part of her life is going to look like. And that's how things wrap up for her. And so we see in that final episode, we know the choices that she's made, how she's responded to those questions that were thrown at her, and now where she's going in life.
Yeah, it really puts a bow on everything and just, like you said, answers a lot of the questions from the series as a whole. So I think that's a great line. What about coziest vibes?
I would go with Santa's Secret stuff. I actually like, I kind of enjoyed seeing Gigi more in that episode.
Little spoilery. But
sorry. We
haven't mentioned her yet, so just skate over it.
Yep. But I really just, it's a nice warm holiday episode. You know, popcorn, tinsel, doing all of the festive holiday things. Starting some new Christmassy traditions. So there's that.
Yeah, I agree. Best character interaction?
I really didn't have anything that stuck out to me here. I'll say character interaction that I didn't like was maybe just Lorelai and Chris when they're in Paris, because I think that was just such a huge mistake. So maybe poor interactions in a different way, because you shouldn't have been doing what you were doing.
Maybe. I really like Gilmore Girls only for this one. Just all of the Gilmore women together in a car on the way to North Carolina. Lorelai trying to put the window down and Emily like controlling it from the driver's side, being like, no, you can't have the window down. It's just so, you know, typical family road trip vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And despite the fact that they recast the actress, it was nice to see Mia again. I think the series needed more Mia. It was such an important relationship for Lorelai, and it didn't get fleshed out very well. So I liked seeing her again.
Yeah. Would you have, I guess, I'll say this. I just want to start off with this before we go into like closing things out and the other things. Funniest episode for you?
Ooh, I think it's got to be Smarterful Smarvelous. There's something that happens in this episode that is so objectively funny that I can't even say what it is. It will ruin it. But it's a hilarious moment involving Emily, and Kelly Bishop is so funny. It's got to be, if you know, you know. If you have seen this episode, you know. It's fabulous.
I'd probably go with Hay Bale Maze, just because of, unsurprisingly, Taylor's insane mismanagement of that event and how the town has to cope with it. And then, like you said, Kirk is a Minotaur. How can you not love that?
Fair. And that transition is perfect for Best Stars Hollow moments, because I would give my honorable mention to Hay Bale Maze for that one, because it is just, again, who thinks to take over the town square with a Hay Bale Maze? Taylor Dosey.
Taylor Dosey.
And I would also add Bon Voyage. Just the going away party for Rory is a perfect culmination of everyone that we've met and loved throughout this whole show all coming together for the Gilmore Girls.
Yep. And I will say that is also, I think, my favorite episode of the entire season. I think that's where it, hits its high point on its way out. Because not only are the Stars Hollow folks showing up for Rory as she heads out into the next portion of her life, there are other people that make an appearance that show up for her, who I think she just really appreciates seeing. Again, I don't want to spoil that either, although it's probably not hard to put together who that might be. But everyone is coming together there for her, just wishing her well as she ventures on into this next phase of her life, whatever that may be, because we won't really know and have those questions answered until the revival rolls back around. But it was just chef's kiss to the end of what we got from this show.
Yeah. And I would also say that it is one of the most heartwarming episodes of the entire series, for all those reasons. And I would also give a shout out for most heartwarming to whom it may concern. It's a big moment for Luke, and again, can't say more really without spoiling it, but it's just one of those things where it feels very triumphant and you're very happy for him by the end of the episode, and that's what sort of warms your heart, because Luke has a bit of a rough season in season 7, so to see him have a win is really nice, and to kind of get his interactions with people in that one, especially Lorelai.
Yeah, it is really a moment that will tug at your heartstrings. I know it always tugs at mine, no matter how many times I see it.
Okay, well, I think that is it. That is all 7 seasons. We're not even going to touch the revival. Even if we weren't going 2 hours, we still weren't going to touch the revival, because it's like, don't even think about it until you've seen enough of the show to make the revival make sense. But we hope you enjoyed this 2-hour seminar on how to watch Gilmore Girls, or how to instruct others to watch Gilmore Girls if you're like, just watch a few episodes here and there. So hopefully we've given you something for every vibe that you could ever hope for, and that you got some sort of information out of this one that helped you to process the show, or to approach it in a way that feels a little more approachable to you and more doable, because 153 episodes can be daunting. So I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, but if you are on the fence, we do hope this wasn't enlightening for you. We hope it takes you off of that fence, and just to give this show a shot. We really, truly don't believe that you will be disappointed if you can just, maybe take some of what we said with a grain of salt and just slowly start to get your feet wet. There's an entire fandom that can attest to the love and appreciation that is there and still present for this show. So we just hope this has been helpful for you.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, if you could leave us a comment, tell us what you thought, hit that like button, and maybe the subscribe if you're feeling so generous. That would be great. We appreciate everything. Every little thumbs up and every subscribe really warms our hearts. So thank you for being here. Thank you for making it to the end of another 2-hour episode. And hopefully we will see you next Friday for dinner.
Ciao.
Bye.